Hey guys, we're going to be setting up the quarantine tank, hospital tank, whatever you want to call it. People call them both. I feel like the biggest difference is the quarantine tank. A lot of people tend to they'll put the fish in the quarantine tank before they go in the display tank. That way you don't get any diseases in your big tank with all your fancy fish you want to show off. And then your hospital tank, you're taking them from the display tank and putting them into the hospital tank. But they serve the same purpose. You're isolating fish that are sick or could potentially be sick and need medication. So in this case, I'm using my old 10-gallon. Like I said before, that's what I'm going to be using. But I have seen people in a pinch use like a plastic drawer, a tote. You just want to get them out of the main aquarium and into something else if they're sick. So you need a couple of things other than obviously something that holds water and doesn't leak. I've got a little heater here. I don't think I'll need it right now just because it's summertime and the house is sitting at about 75 without, anything. But just in case, we've got a heater. We have got a little sponge filter that's big enough for a 10-gallon. I already have my air line set up, but I'll show you guys how to do that too because I'm actually going to connect it into my current air line. We've got a connector kit. You'll also want a check valve, which is just in case your air pump is sitting lower than your filter. In case you got to unplug it or the power goes out, it's just going to help make sure no water runs back into your air pump and fries the motor. I'll show you guys what that looks like when we get down there to do that. And we also have some airline tubing. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this bad boy filled up. So I'm going to do that real quick and then I'll see you in a minute. Alright, we're back. We've got about, I think I did 8 gallons. I didn't fill it the whole way to the top. Just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. Because when we put our arm in and out, we don't want to splash water everywhere. But before we do anything else, we're going to do water conditioner. So this is a 10-gallon. Instructions say 5 milliliters. Let me just fill up to the 5 milliliter line. Oh, that's a little bit more, but that's okay. Extra can't hurt. This is one of those times where extra can't hurt. If you can't remember whether you dosed it or not, dose it again just in case. We live downtown in the city, so we have chloramine in the water, which is bad for the fish, and since it is meant to prevent things that would make you sick if you drank it, potentially fatal to any of the good bacteria we have. It's not like it picks and chooses between good and bad. It's going to kill it all. So we want to do that. And I'm just going to put my bottle over here. Next thing, I already unplugged my air compressor so that we can do the little one. I'll show you guys how to do that. So I'm going to open up this little guy. And these are actually super easy. I've never done a sponge filter, but I am so glad I decided on a sponge filter for this 20. So this is it. It's just this little, no moving parts, nothing really for your fish to get stuck in. That's always a bonus. This goes on top. You'll see in the bottom there, this little spoke, that's where your airline will attach to. But what I'm going to do for the little bit of beneficial bacteria we may or may not have in here, because anything is better than nothing, I'm just going to give it one of these. And then I'm going to come down here for a minute. It's just going to be easier. Make sure I adjust you guys so you can see everything. You can get these little suction cups. They come with these, little plastic holders. You just stick them on the glass. They kind of help keep your airline straight and from flying all over the place. They've been very nice. So, I'm going to open our airline up here. Not 100% sure how long this needs to be, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. And you can always, just remember, you can't make it longer again. You can always cut it shorter. So, it's better to err on the side of caution with this. My other one, I left the full 8 feet of tubing on because I'd figured at some point I would be adjusting or adding onto the system. So that was for the best. So you just take, where did I set that bugger? There it is. This end. and you press it onto that little spoke in the center. It's a tight fit, so you might have to push and wiggle a little bit, but it'll attach. Get right like that and give it a gentle tug. It stays put, all good to go. So I'm just going to set that guy aside. Put him down here. Now the check valve, which is very important, is, see if I can get him into frame for you. This guy. There we go. This one is actually labeled in on one side and out on the other. The inside has like a black disc on it. You want that towards your air compressor. The out will go up towards your tank. If you have it in backwards when you plug everything in, you won't see any bubbles. So you can adjust it then. I'm actually realizing I probably should have put it further down, but that's okay, no big deal. So what I'm actually going to do in this case, because I want to put a second on, there should be T adapters in this pack. Like I said, I am new to sponge filters, so I am also figuring everything out with you guys. I thought I saw, or a Y adapter also work. I'm not 100% sure what those are. Here we go, this is what we want. So you'll have one that goes to your air compressor, and then one for each of your sponges. That's the nice thing about the sponge filters as well, is you can hook up multiples to the same system. Now I'm going to put this in after the check valve. That way, you know, any water from either sponge stops at the check valve. I've also seen setups where each one gets its own individual check valve. I don't have that big of a setup, so I'm not super duper worried about that right now. So you just, and it's a little scary. You get a cut and you can't take it back. But we're going to take our pair of scissors, clip it, maybe. The plastic's pretty thick, so come on. There it is. And then get you back into frame here. We're just going to put this one here. Come on. Like I said, the tight is super fit, like super snug, so you might have to fuss with it a little bit. There it is, though. Get right like this. Come on. You just want to get it on there as good as you can. But remember, there's no water in these lines, only air. So you don't actually have to worry about a spill. Which is the nice part. Well, we're out of focus again. There we go. And then we'll take this one. And scoot you guys up a little bit here. There you go. We'll attach him. I have a feeling I'm going to end up cutting that other 8-foot line short. But that's okay. I actually am going to use it for drip acclimating my shrimp. We'll go over how to do that as well. Come on. There we go. Also, still getting used to the little neck holder I bought, so. But it is very nice. I don't have to hold the phone now and try and do everything with one hand. And then we'll take our new line. Excuse me. And we'll attach it as well. Come on. Oh, these are a super tight fit. That's good, though. You know, we want to maintain air pressure as best we can. And you can't do that with a loose fit if you have air leaking out of the system. There we go. Alright. We're going to stand back up here. We'll take the little guys with us in case we decide we want a couple suction cups. That is Houdini, who's being nosy. And that is Geely, who you will hear scream a lot. Those are my helpers. I have 4 more helpers somewhere. But then we're going to take our little, I don't know if you can see him, there we go. Our little sponge filter. I'm just going to feed it up through the back and center here. You can feed it however you need to. Right there. And we'll just put it down in the tank. It's that easy. And it's weighted on the bottom, which is helpful. So right like that. He might float a little bit because he is so little. I'm going to squeeze him to get some of the air out. See if that helps. There we go. There we go, that's a little bit better. And yep, I'm going to take one of our suction cups. You put the little plastic thing on the back. Going to attach it to our line here. Maybe. Everything's, like I said, super snug fit. Come on. And my hands are damp, so that, you know, doesn't make working with plastic any easier. It's already slippery. There we go, got it. And then pull a little bit of slack out of this line. You just suction cup it right in, wherever you would like it to sit. I'm going to sit it in that back right corner. So there's that. Easy peasy. We're going to plug it back in and see if both these filters are working. They should be. There's no reason for them not to, but... Get my mess of cords back here. There we go. Alright. See if we have bubbles. Do not have bubbles to the big one, but we have bubbles to the little one, which is... Oh, there we go. Now we have bubbles to the big one. That just tells me to run these, I might need a bigger compressor. Which is fine. That's not a big deal. I can always buy a bigger one. And realistically, I'm only going to have this little tank up and running while I'm quarantining fish or if somebody is sick. So that's fine. We'll just adjust as we go, no biggie. The other thing is the heater then, which I'm actually going to go ahead and leave boxed up because, like I said, I don't think I'll need it. But this one does not have an adjust like my bigger one does, but it should heat to, it says on here somewhere, 78 degrees, which is pretty good. And for hospital tanks, you want a little bit higher anyway, so nothing wrong with that. And that's literally just stick it on the glass, make sure it's submerged up to wherever the minimum water level says, and plug it in and let it go. That's it. Those are great. That is literally it. But you will notice that setting this up is a lot like setting a regular aquarium up. The biggest difference is going to be, well, we've got a filter, we've got a heater, we've got a tank light. I just don't have this one because there's no plant, so I'm not worried about it. The only thing we don't have in our hospital quarantine tank that we have in our display tank, is what you call your nice big tank with all your pretty fish, is substrate. And that is because it does three things for us. It allows us to monitor poop for any signs of sickness. It makes the tank easier to clean. And if there's no substrate, it can't harbor any like bacteria, parasites, anything that you want to keep out of the water while you're treating. Which is really what you want, especially in a hospital tank. In a quarantine tank, though, it can help as well in case you bring somebody in and they're accidentally sick. The other reason we use a smaller tank for when somebody is ill as a hospital tank is because, so in this case, it's not too bad. We've got a 20-gallon and then we've got a 10-gallon. That size difference isn't too big, but imagine you have a 55-gallon and two fish in your 55-gallon are sick. You can either spend a lot of extra money and stress all your fish out on medicating the whole 55, or you can move your two sick fish to a smaller tank, whether it be a 10, a 20, what have you, a tote, that also works like I said before, and just medicate it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is certain things are sensitive to some medications. If you plan on keeping anything like shrimp, and I believe also snails, which I do plan on keeping both, they are sensitive to medications with copper in them. So, you know, you go to medicate your fish in your big tank with everything and your snails and your shrimp, and you accidentally just decimate your snails and your shrimp. We don't want to do that. So, take the sick fish out, put them in here, medicate this. No problems. Most medications also require at some point a 50% water change. So once again, not too bad, a 20 and a 10. But imagine, a 55. I have to do a 50% water change on a 55 now because I medicated my whole tank instead of just moving my fish. So that is why hospital tank. Why quarantine tank is relatively similar. You bring your fish in from the pet store. They get stressed out from being moved and traveled and everything. Their immune system lowers. They had something, but they weren't sick yet, and now they're sick. It can take, most people will say, you want to quarantine for at least 2 weeks because it could take symptoms that long to show. Some people are more cautious and do 4, but 2 is like the minimum you want to do. For the same reason. That way, if I see any illness, it doesn't end up in my nice display tank, and it doesn't make everybody sick. Because one sick fish is a lot easier than a whole tank of sick fishes. So that is why we use a quarantine in a hospital tank. And there is one more thing, because this is very bare, and whatever you put in there is going to be super stressed out because there's no hiding places. I have some of my artificial plants left over from when it was a 10-gallon with a betta and a couple friends in it. So I'm just going to take a couple of these guys. We'll take these guys with the big leaves on them. And we're going to put them in there just to give our guests some hiding places so they're not so stressed out. Nice and easy. You just drop them in. Most artificial plants are weighted on the bottom. No problems. Right like that. It's also a good idea to not only use your quarantine tank for fish, but for your plants. If you've ever been to the pet store with their live tanks, it's inevitable they end up with snails in them just from all the plants in and out. So by putting them in here, you can ensure you don't accidentally put any snails in your tank. I've seen people do the saltwater baths with plants, peroxide. I'm sure there are some other things I don't know about. Personally, I like the peroxide bath. It seems to work relatively well. And then put them in the quarantine tank for a little bit just to make sure nothing hatches off of them. But that's it. And it would be pretty much the exact same way to set up a display tank. You would probably just, put substrate in the bottom. You might decide on some real plants instead. But the basics are the same. And also, I will need to purchase one for this. I did forget about that. Little sticky heater. It's more accurate than like those strip ones you see. But if that's all you can get, you know what, that works too. You work with what you have. So yeah, when setting up a tank, that's pretty much it. You want to make sure you have a filter and heater. Those are your big 2. And I've also even seen some people do their show tanks, normally if it's goldfish or something very messy, without substrate at the bottom. So that's also an option for your show tank. There's not really a right or wrong answer other than making sure your fish are happy and healthy. But that is it. I will see you guys next time. I hope you have a good night.